morning, world. This is Steve Rao, the host of Pod and Roku TV's World Edition. I greet you live from the All-America city of Morrisville in North Carolina, the 8th largest state in the United States of America. And today we're going to talk about Ron DeSantis' announcement on Twitter, which didn't go very well for the President of the United States, continuing talks on the debt ceiling, and of course, sharing some sentiments about the loss of an icon in the United States of America and around the world, Tina Turner, who simply was the best, better than all the rest. We're going to talk about other issues, but I want to spend a few minutes today delivering my opening remarks about Memorial Day and Memorial Day week. And I have to leave a little early today because I'm heading off for a few days. But I just wanted to begin today by saying that last week I was in Washington, D.C., and I took a run from the Capitol, as I always do there, to the Lincoln Memorial. And as I saw in the temple and mausoleum of honoring our great president, our president who lost his life serving our nation, President Abraham Lincoln, I was so moved by reading the words in the Gettysburg Address that said that these dead shall not have died in vain, and that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. President Lincoln actually challenged us on the fields of Gettysburg that we could not consecrate or dedicate the land that the brave soldiers who gave their lives that America might live during a divided time and during the Civil War. But it was rather for us, the living, to be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that we would give increased devotion to the great cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. And what was that last full measure? Freedom. Freedom for all of us. From the Revolutionary War to the present day, over 1.7 million soldiers, or more than that, have died serving their nation. I got moved to tears when I walked by the Vietnam Memorial and saw the 58,000 names written. Young men, some of them as 18 years old, who lost their lives because they were just answering the highest call for their nation of service and paid the ultimate price. The war on terror, we've lost over 7,000 troops, and every war we lose soldiers. And there are people today standing at post, saving us around the world, fighting against tyranny and oppression. The greatest generation, World War II, we lost 500,000 in that war. And it was just an incredible thing to see our country rally together with the Allies and defeat fascism, Adolf Hitler, and create an opportunity the likes of which we have never seen. Today, I just want us to remember our soldiers. But it's not enough just to have a parade or listen to taps or attend events. It's about remembering them every day that we live and we have our freedom. We know the people of Ukraine right now are fighting and dying for their freedom. And we must never forget that the freedom that we have, that freedom that these soldiers died for, should not be taken for granted. I always get emotional when I talk about Memorial Day because I think of the Gold Star families and those who never will hear the voice of their loved one again, who are just doing the job they were sent to do, to keep us free. Perhaps this is one day, 1 week, 1 month, where we can celebrate the fact that our nation produced these fine citizens. They were the finest of our country, and they defended us at all costs. We are grateful for their sacrifice. We will never forget them, and we will remember them, as President Lincoln reminded us, by the way we live and never forgetting what they fought and died for. If you are a veteran and you serve our nation, we are grateful for your service, and we pray for any family who has lost a loved one. On that note, I want to welcome you to the show. God bless the United States. God save our troops. And we begin the show today. We'll be back. I'll be back on Tuesday. I'm going to be here for a few minutes where we can continue this discussion. And it kind of was a short week. But Mark, let's go ahead and bring it on. We'll share a few moments to talk about Memorial Day, the different festivities and events going on. And then we'll talk a little bit about DeSantis. I got about 5 minutes, and then I'll be back on Tuesday. But
no problem. Like I said, definitely have some folks that have got some military ties. Definitely have my cousin that served and is definitely doing some civilian work and have other relatives that have served as well. So definitely have respect for the military and a understanding for the duties of the military and all in that space. I actually invited cousin Emmett Perlock to come in on this particular show, and he has been on other shows. So we'll see if he pops in sometime between now and actual Memorial Day. I do know that some people, particularly here in the South, because one of the things that folks enjoy about Memorial Day is that while it is a very important holiday, it is also one that is a store holiday and is also a holiday that a lot of people enjoy their beach trips and they're getting out and about. And I just recently learned that at least here in North Carolina, it might be a wet one because there might be some people that are going to have to change their plans because there are rain clouds that are on their way. And I was actually just talking to one of my co-workers at another job, and there's supposed to be a food truck rodeo this coming Saturday, and that might be getting postponed because of 3 days of rain about to come to North Carolina. So it might be a wet Memorial Day, but that does not need us to stop us from honoring those folks that definitely sacrifice so much and all in that space. But I know that, if I remember correctly, Dan Worthington is a veteran, so he might have some thoughts about Memorial Day. And I can't remember if Lee Newton Rhodes served, but I do know that he is definitely a political figure, so he might have some thoughts as well. Dan, I turn it over to you.
I think what Steve said in his opening statement was very appropriate. There are many men and women who serve the United States and given their lives to defend liberty and freedom and defend the rights of the rest of us in America to express our opinions and to believe the way we believe and express our thoughts and ideas and to protect us in the freedom of our religion and the freedoms that we enjoy in this great country. That blood that was spilled is precious blood, is sacred blood. The families that have lost loved ones have given as the sacrifice their loved ones as a last measure of devotion to this country. It's something that we need to remember when we are seeking to find fault with our country and the difficulties that we face, and as we try to solve problems as Americans in a united way. The divisive politics is hurting our country, and the policies of this particular administration have been very, very damaging to our country. When the silent majority is further silenced by censorship and by strategies that the U.S. government and the security agencies try to deploy against U.S. citizens that have to have an opinion to express and censor those voices. It's a sad day for our citizens, and it flies in the face of the sacrifices that were made by the men and women who died for this country to protect the very freedoms that our own government is now using strategies to deploy against Americans to silence them and only support the kind of narratives they want to support. I think it's a shame, and President Biden and his administration should be ashamed of what they've done with respect to that, and it has no place in the United States. And they need to change their ways immediately so that the voices of Americans can be heard and can be expressed in ways that promote liberty and freedom and free expression.
Thank you, Dan.
Everything. Hey, Lee, you're definitely one that is running for political office and doing a great job, at least on social media and all in that space. Who knows, you may be the underdog candidate that is able to pull out that win and all along those lines. But I do know that the one of the things that is talked about on the political lane is the notion of veteran support and veterans issues and all in that kind of way. I actually have some friends that are involved in that space. One of them actually runs of all things, a talent show competition, but it is partially used to talk about veterans issues and veterans rights while using the old Apollo model. And I did invite Captain Newborn to come on as well. And ironically, that's his first name and not his rank, because he never actually served in the military, but he has a passion for the military and military rights and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, as a political candidate, your thoughts around the veterans and particularly around Memorial Day.
First of all, this gratitude. It's only one day a year, whether we have Veterans Day or Memorial Day, but it should be a whole year that we have gratitude towards these people, and also all first responders, whether it's fire, police, what have you. Because of them, we are able to live our lives and have our freedoms and our liberties. And to piggyback on what some of what Dan said is, there should be no politicization of any of these groups of people, first responders, military, none whatsoever. And I think it's indicative of the administration, of any administration. How do those groups of people think of the administration? Without mentioning names, you can figure out, if you see, a president, or a mayor or a governor show up at an event where there are first responders or military, and how they're treated or how they're respected. Sometimes, they're praised and, they can't get enough. And other times they turn their back on these things because they feel these people, these politicians, don't have their backs. And to not have their backs all year long, but show up on these days, rah, it doesn't work like that. You can't do that. And it's a shame that some of these veterans are being treated worse than these people coming across the border. And I just don't understand that for the life of me, why we do that.
And I think that's a good point. And I'm gonna come back. I gotta leave in about 5 minutes, but I'm heading off for a few days. But one thing, and then we'll get a quick update from Sasha. You raised a very good point. There have been so many themes for this month. I have lost count. You've got Asian American Heritage Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, Jewish Heritage Month. I ran out, actually. Usually in my city newsletters, I talk about the months, but I ran out of months to talk about, so I've got to carry them over. But you know what? It was Military Appreciation Month. And we did not hear enough about that this month. It was Armed Forces Day, where we celebrated the armed forces coming together in 1950 under President Truman. It was, all these different things coming together. And I just wonder, Lee and Dan, I tell you, we have forgotten. We are as a country just thinking these are 2 days we celebrate, get together, Memorial Day, beginning of the summer, Veterans Day, getting close to Thanksgiving. I think we need to be bringing more awareness of it. And I was disappointed. I wanted to do the invocation. I gave up because it was a Jewish rabbi came who delivered a wonderful invocation. But there was not even a proclamation issued by our mayor and our council for Memorial Day. And I devoted my comments to the veterans and the soldiers of our nation. But it's getting drowned out. And I just had to get that off my chest because I think because it's getting drowned out, Dan Worthington hit it on the nail. I'm going to get out of being political today and blaming Biden or Trump. But the fact is, it's Americans. We're forgetting that we're one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
Is that a failure of our educational system, our schools not teaching it? Or is it something else?
We're I think it's the focus of the media. We're so focused on the quick hits, the quick tweets, the quick posts that we're just stopping. Why don't we all stop our emails from both Republicans and Democrats? My challenge to any politician is stop. I don't need to learn about whether you need $1 more or $5 more to attack the next guy. Why don't we take a few days off and just reflect, think, go to a memorial, stand there and look at the names. I'm assuring you'll walk away from there in tears to know that someone died for you. This is the most humble thing I have ever seen. I got emotional. I always get emotional when I see the Lincoln Memorial. But when on the way back, you see the Vietnam Memorial. And that's where I was running. I said, you know what? President Lincoln got it. He understood it. What he was saying, that it's not enough. Remember what he said in the Gettysburg Address? The world will little know nor longer what we say here, but it shall never forget what they did here, right? But it's not enough. I think that's what Lincoln was saying, to come to the battlefield and deliver a speech. We have to be dedicated to that task remaining before us, to know that they didn't die in vain. But if, like
I
Dan Williams
mean,
said, we keep attacking each other like this.
hey, Steve, if I can play slightly devil's advocate here and everything
Oh,
along
please
those lines,
don't.
I think part of what has happened is that unfortunately, and I think Dan may partially agree with me on this and everything, is that over the last several decades, we have got into a conversation around the military industrial complex where a lot of the politicians and the politics is tied into the military. And I think that Vietnam was a perfect example of that. I think that Afghanistan was a perfect example of that. So I think that there are some people that, while they have respect for their military folks, and a lot of people have used the military as a way to economically improve themselves and to do a lot of the mantras that come out of the military recruiting, like get to travel the world and a number of other things, including better themselves financially and all of that space. There have been some wars over the last several decades that are, to put it bluntly, questionable in terms of why we went there and how we went there, and they are tied into the greater political landscape that goes on, and that's not a Democratic or a Republican issue. So while I have a great deal of respect for those military folks that sacrifice their lives in that way, I do know for a fact that there are some veterans out there that are frustrated because of not feeling that they went to a war that was justified, or a war that was one that they later learned was for causes that they might not have approved of, and all along those lines. And I've even heard you say stuff about that yourself, Lee and Dan. So
Yeah, well, Mark, you could be anti-war, anti-military industrial establishment, all that stuff, against it totally.
Right.
Nevertheless, you should never be against the man or woman in the military who was there doing the patriotic duty, giving us and protecting us on a daily basis. The two are totally separate.
No, and I agree with you on that. I think that there has to be respect for those that did the sacrifice. But like I said, I've had the pleasure of talking to some that have served, and some of them have even had questions about the wars that they went into, but they also respected and honored those that died in that war.
They're not the ones calling the shots. Yeah. They're not the ones calling the shots. It's the biggies in Washington, sometimes not having our best interest. Just in Afghanistan, the way we pulled out was disgusting.
Right.
Well, guys, I got to run. I want to wish you all a very good week. Never a happy Memorial Day, a somber Memorial Day. And when I come back, we're going to talk about DeSantis' announcement, the Twitter bumble, Tina Turner, simply the best, better than all the rest. Can't believe she's gone. Ran to her music this morning. And of course, the debt ceiling, final negotiations. We know they're going to come up with a deal, but he's still saying they can't get it done. $35 billion. They can't find it. We're going to talk next week about the spending cuts. I'm going to be on PBS tomorrow, but I won't have time to host a show. Be safe wherever you are, guys. Thank you all so much.
See you on Tuesday.
All right, see you on Tuesday, Steve. Appreciate it. Everything.
God
I'm
bless.
coming with something that you just brought up, just really quickly, because one of the things that I think that folks dismiss, and definitely is part of that narrative as well, is the fact that you can come from some very humble backgrounds. You can go through literally hell and all in that space. But that's where I was going to go in our conversation with Tina Turner, because she was an amazing performer. Even some of our other legends like Mick Jagger have admitted that they got some of their moves and some of their influences from her work and everything. But let's not also forget that this was a woman that was in a very abusive situation in terms of her relationship with Ike and everything in that space, and actually used that in some of her music and conversations to speak out on some of those issues and all along those lines. So definitely, I think that you can have some hard times and go through some hardness, because she was also not growing up in the best neighborhood in terms of finances, because she grew up in a poor part of the South and all in that way. So definitely, she is an example of somebody that had resilience and used that resilience for a very long and effective career.
We also have to discuss some serious problems in this United States of America on Memorial Day. And let's start with this one, the debt at $31 trillion. Now, I'm afraid that our education system does a poor job delivering financial planning in general.
We have one?
I think the problem is they don't know how staggering this amount of debt is. All mortgages combined in the United States total 11 trillion. We're 31 trillion in debt, pushing up to more and more debt, and we're not really looking at that on a serious basis. Problem number two, we need to address Memorial Day. Healthcare, 20% of our GDP. No country in the world spends more and gets less on healthcare. Notice, spend more, get less than the United States of America. And this we should have hearings on every day in Congress. We ignore it. Another problem we have is housing in general. I don't know if you looked at real estate prices lately, but they're off the charts. People can't afford to live where they live anymore. So it's creating a lot of homeless people. We should have hearings every day. I believe Congress took the week off, Memorial Day. In my company, you wouldn't do that. You would be working through Memorial Day till you solve this problem. But all entrepreneurs would do that, but not Congress. They're going home.
I think that's the reason why.
Pardon?
Your employees have skin in the game. Congressmen have no skin in the game.
Yeah, well, the thing is also they have a mentality, an entitlement mentality up in Congress.
Big time.
If you're an entrepreneur, you work 100 hours a week. If you're in Congress, you take as much time off as you can.
Well,
National security,
yeah.
another
Nicole,
needs to be addressed. We have a war going on in Ukraine, whether we like it or not. We have international threats from Russia and China, Iran, North Korea. There should be hearings on it every week. Okay, these are all the major problems. Then we have what I call minor problems. Violent crime in America. I love being in Spain because it's 10 times safer in the United States. I love being in Africa, in Morocco. It is 4 times safer in the United States. That is a sad commentary on our country. Add another problem, immigration. Millions of people at the border, but we're not going to address that at all because nobody can figure out a solution to this. And then we have, of course, the abortion issue, an issue that shouldn't have come up, but thanks to the Supreme Court, we can add that to the mix.
well,
Now,
you can add one more, and actually, one of your
people
co-workers brought
died
this
for the
up. in
country
Virginia.
that it was. Are we going to die for the country that it's becoming? And the thing is, my answer would be no. You know, if you look at all this, unless you work on these problems and solve these problems, you're just wasting your time. And this is where I see it. You know, and you can't devote yourself to all the craziness of Donald Trump and the craziness of the Republican Party and the ineptitude of the Democratic Party. You know, the people need to get involved in their country if they're going to turn this ship around, because the people in Washington, D.C., they're sending the ship right down the toilet. And it's
Nick, along
Yeah.
those same lines, because I know
That's your Democrats that are doing that.
brought this up as well. But what is our thoughts about that one as well? Because there are 12 million women a year in the U.S. that are victims of abuse. So
I wouldn't say it's just the Democrats. We have the Democrats and Republicans working together to do this, because if they
It's the
didn't,
Democrats' policies are destroying this country, and you know it.
well, yeah, there are a lot of it. A lot of them are their policies, but let's go look at this one: healthcare, 20% of GDP. Okay, you know, the thing is, I hate to say it, our Republican friends, Big Pharma has the money in their they own their pocketbooks. Okay, so it's not.
But that's just not just Republicans. That's Democrats also. They have
That's
their pocketbooks
Democrats also.
You have bipartisan support. What about
Right.
housing? Okay, come on, Dan. Housing is controlled by the Republicans. They love to have expensive apartment buildings and sending everybody into apartment buildings.
The Republicans don't control housing anymore.
So when you look at these problems, it's easy.
You're being ridiculous.
You're
You're being
Democrat,
ridiculous.
Republicans, but it's bipartisan. So what you need to do is have people elected. Hopefully, first of all, you need to have people educated on these issues. And I don't know about you, but I actually took healthcare when I was in elementary school. How many people here on this panel took healthcare classes when they're in elementary school?
Can you be more specific? What do you mean by healthcare in elementary school?
I had diseases. I had basic
health
nursing
course.
programs. I had diagnosis programs because my mom was a registered nurse and the head nurse at Tampa General Hospital. Okay. However, most people and most classes in elementary school on the traditional side, you take no classes in healthcare. Lee, did you ever take a class in healthcare in elementary, middle school, or high school?
No, it took general sciences, but not healthcare.
Oh, general sciences, but not healthcare. How
Biology, things like
right.
that.
No,
Chemistry,
biology, etc.
right.
Okay. See, the thing
Reproductive health and stuff.
in
Right.
our school system, healthcare should be a mandatory class. Algebra 1 was fine, but that's not going to cure you of your diseases. It's not going to cure this problem that we're seeing right now, 20% of GDP going to healthcare. This goes back to our fundamental problem. It's not Democrat or Republican. It is our education system. And the answer by the Democrats is, let's just spend more money. No, if you spend more money learning more about, quote, sociology, it's not going to solve the healthcare problem in America. What you need
Nick,
to do
when you took the course, did it cover things like
what?
the health course that you took? Did it talk about a diet, exercise, and things like that also, or just diseases?
Unfortunately, Lee, I'm glad you brought that point out. Unfortunately, back in the 40s and 50s, where my mom was a registered nurse and all the books I read, believe it or not, they did not have anything on what you're just describing, even though it's very important. So our classes that do not exist in elementary school right now, relating to healthcare and disease and nutrition, should be taught.
Wait a minute, Nick. Hold on a second. When you in school, hold on a second, Nick. When you in school, because I do remember some health courses even in grade school here in North Carolina, and they used to talk about the different food groups and the different things. Now, of course, there are some people that are saying that what was being taught was nowhere near reality and everything, but they did give you these different various food groups, whether that's fruits and vegetables and a number of the other kinds of things that are in there. And they also talked about the calories and a number of other things that were part of the courses that I remember in definitely junior high and even some that were grade school oriented. So I can't say that those were not taught, but one of the things that we have learned is that some of the things that were taught are not always factual. I would just use an example from the world of pets and everything, because how many of us here have been told for years, and I used to own one of these animals, that if you had a cat, you wanted to give the cat milk, and then we later learned that most of the cats of the world are actually lactose intolerant, and therefore you are actually destroying them if you are giving them milk. But how many of us were actually taught that? Lee, were you taught that if you had a cat, you gave them milk?
Well, not just that, but a lot of things. That's why it's imbecilic to say science is settled on anything.
Yeah, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, the thing is, scientific research goes on continuously, and it continuously discover new things, even in outer space, and reclassify. Like Pluto is no longer a planet. They discovered it was too small. So the thing is, you can't say, well, I learned Pluto was a planet, and hence they got it wrong, hence science is bad. No. See, again, we need to also, I guess, learn basic logic courses and also the evolutionary progress that you actually have in science classes. But we also do have to teach the right things. I mean, how many people took U.S. fiscal responsibility?
Nobody took it, but there were people that
we took civics courses, but not that.
Parachutes and a number of other jobs that were.
Lee, what they did is they started eliminating civic courses around the country. So at least when I was in school, there was no civic classes and no one discussed what we're looking at right now, which is the national debt of $31 trillion. They're not looking at the unsustainability of Medicare, which actually would fall into the healthcare. Medicare going bankrupt this decade.
Nick, they probably figured out. Hold on a second, Nick. They probably figured out that civics was being taught on television.
Going bankrupt in 10
hold on a
years.
second. They probably figured out that it was being taught on television through things like Schoolhouse Rocks, because I do remember there was that whole thing about this is nothing but a bill and all of that. So it's a very simplistic way of thinking about things, but that is what we went in the direction of, because a lot of people were like figuring that if you learned about a bill through a simple song, or if you learned about Washington through a simple song, that was going to be enough. And I don't think that that's enough, but that is kind of the mentality that a lot of folks have.
Mark, these are continuous problems that plague the United States of America. And guess what? Memorial Day, you could say in the next 5 years, all these people died in vain, or at least they died for a cause that took place over 200 years. But it doesn't necessarily mean the next 200 years are going to be successful. As I explained to people in the stock market, the first 10 years, you're actually better off in fixed instruments. The next year, 10 years, you're better off in equities. The next 10 years, who knows? If I had a crystal ball, which I do because it's data, and you're looking at America in the next 10 years, you're looking at all the people viewing this who are on Social Security not receiving their benefits, or at least not what they expect. In the next 10 years, you're looking at all the people on Medicare not receiving their benefits, at least what they expect. You're looking at a government that cannot pay. It's not going to be, hey, we're going to reduce the amount of people we're paying. They're not going to be able to pay it, and you better find another job.
Nick,
you're looking
why
at
does someone?
you're looking at people, more people, not what we're seeing right now of the people sitting on the streets being, what do they call it? They're homeless. You're going to see more homeless. I mean, all you have to do is do data projection. You're figuring it out. Violent crime. You think that's bad now? It's going to get worse. It's just like easy predictions. There'll be fires in the West. How hard is that to predict? Tornadoes in the Midwest and hurricanes in the South. This is not difficult. And national security, this is a wild card out there. Right now, we are falling behind China. And hey, look, and if Russia beats the pants out of Ukraine, we will slide into not being the superpower. All the data says it. As a matter of fact, you can go look at steel. It just recently was published. The United States at one time, not too long ago, was the leading producer of steel in the world. You know who the leading producer of steel in the world by far is today? It's China. 4 times greater amount of steel produced in China than the United States of America. We're worried about silicon chips. Okay, yeah, chips are important, but we don't have steel. Somebody just flashed up BRICS. This is an alliance. You notice the United States isn't in here. We have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the new world power. Where's the United States of America? Our leadership is so lacking that this is going to be the new reality coming forth in the next 10 years. And this is what
Nick, why is all this manufacturing choosing to leave? Is it regulations or is it cost of labor or what?
Who's choosing to leave?
All the China's taking over all these manufacturing industries, whether it's steel, whether it's the chip.
Look, let's get the whole. Let's get reality here. Let's look at IBM, a company we used to work with. Probably before you're here, we were IBM TV, but IBM ripped off our URL literally after we had a 2-year contract with them. Where are all the jobs of IBM? Where do most people work in IBM? Lee, they don't work in the United States of America, and they keep this very quiet. The biggest employer of IBM is India. Why? Real simple. The engineers work in India. Yeah, that's right. As a matter of fact, Pod TV, when we're looking to hire people to run our background, or the day-to-day work, not you, Mark, you're secure. I'm secure. Some of us are secure. But the new hires, we're going to look overseas to hire them because they work at a lower rate. And this is the reality of all the people listening, the young people. Your jobs can and will be taken from you, not just by AI, but also by overseas labor.
Hey, Nick, hold on a second. Isn't part of the problem
cheaper?
No, but Nick, isn't part of the problem also that a number of companies that we are proud to think of as being American are not necessarily American in root and everything? I live here, as do you, in the Research Triangle Park. There's a company called GlaxoSmithKline. Last time I checked, GlaxoSmithKline is actually a British company. There is also a company here called Rhône-Poulenc. Last time I checked, that was actually a French company. Okay. So there are a number of companies here in the United States that we think are United States based, but they may have a large U.S. presence, but they are not administered from the U.S.
Their headquarters is not in the United States, and their shareholders are worldwide.
Right. That's
the reality. Like Sasha turned me on to NVIDIA. Now I'm feeling stupid. I dumped my NVIDIA stock. It went skyrocketing high. Okay, but
I sold everything.
What, Sasha?
This morning I sold all my positions in NVIDIA.
In NVIDIA, you did? Okay, well, that's because it's skyrocketing high. And nothing wrong with making a profit, but I sold too early, which I usually do. Okay. Speaking of profit, somebody just flashed up our problem that we have right here. This is what we call a systemic problem. Overseas labor don't have the student debt that we have. $1.7 trillion and growing, and not required to buy workman's comp. All right. So the thing is, the student debt problem is frankly out of control. people that teach at universities, and I don't have my university.
And Nick, I'm sorry. How are they getting the skills and the technology and the knowledge without getting the debt?
Oh, you have to be smart about it.
They're getting
in other words,
scholarships and they're
what you
coming here
cannot
and
do,
then
you can't be seduced into going to school to the brand name university and expecting they're going to enlighten you and give you the world. Okay, you have to go to the universities that can teach you what you need to know that don't charge as much. And the big examples I give, like here in North Carolina, the best value, unfortunately, is the state school system, UNC and NC State. In Georgia, you get the Hope Scholarship. You go to Georgia Tech for free. Or you go to University of Georgia for free.
And people in the United States don't know how to live frugally. They think they have to have the big screen TVs and everything, all the amenities that mom and dad had right away. They're not used to understanding that it takes sacrifice and some suffering in order to get ahead in the world and to have goals and to accomplish them.
Jan, are you trying to say that everybody's trying to live with the keeping up with the Joneses, which used to be a popular expression? Because if they see their next door neighbor that's got the Mercedes Benz or the Jaguar, they figure they've got to have the Mercedes Benz or the Jaguar. If they see their
my
got the iPhone or
is,
the big screen TV or the whatever else that is relatively expensive, that they figure they've got to have it as well, even though their economics may not allow them.
Mark, that's all fake. That's the reason Bill Danko is so good with the book The Millionaire Next Door. The Millionaire Next Door doesn't buy any of that stuff.
No. And much of the student debt has been taken on by these kids that were not ever going to be able to pay it back, and we're not going to be responsible for it. They just saw it as a way to increase their lifestyle instead of being responsible. And the people that have paid their student debt back are the ones that were honorable about it. If they incurred the debt, they should pay the damn debt. It's their responsibility to do so. It's an obligation to the United States of America. If we forgive it, guess who pays? It isn't them. It's the rest of us. That's the problem.
The thing that the other person that was putting the comments on, and I know who that person was and everything was alluding to, is I've mentioned it before. I have an upstairs neighbor who is of Chinese descent and is attending Duke. I think he's going to one of the grad schools. He's probably going at a fairly cheap rate and all in that space. And when he goes back to China, is he necessarily going to have to pay whatever loans and other ways that he got here and all in that space? And I haven't had the pleasure yet of talking to him to figure that out and everything. But in other conversations, I do get the impression that a number of folks are coming here and basically getting a free ride in that sense. So, but that also is a problematic issue. Would y'all not agree?
I'm sorry, Mark, free ride from who? Who's picking up the tab?
I would imagine that either the university and or the government is picking up the tab.
When you say government, the federal government or the state? There's a reason I'm asking.
I would guess the
federal government should get out of the student loan business. They shouldn't give a nickel to anyone to go to college. If the states want to do that, or better yet, if universities want to do that on their dime, that's fine.
Let them pony up.
So you want to get rid of, because like I said, I actually got to
anything federal, nothing to do with education.
I actually got to a prestigious university because of student loans and everything. My grades were
come from the university.
Better off. Okay, here's the sad part. I know you went to Marquette, the private prestigious Marquette, and they sold you the bill of goods. How wonderful their university is. I've been down that road. Beautiful the campus is. How seductive it is to go there. But here's the student debt. You may have been better off to go to North Carolina State or UNC. Okay, and see, this is the financial part. And I try to explain it to some of my chess students, okay? Don't fall into the seductive trap of education, all right? And I've been to a lot of schools. It's not like I've been to one or two, and I've taught a lot of schools. It's a seductive trap. The problem is the person who should be telling you that has a major conflict of interest. It's the university themselves, okay? Now, I don't want to tell you how much money I made at Northeastern University as a professor there, because I made a lot of money. But I saw what the students are paying, and I'm going like, you guys are nuts. But then I heard they were being paid by their CPA firms, which if so, that's okay. But some of them may be taking student debt. There's a big wall between the teachers and the payment system that I have no idea how my students are
But
financing.
Nick, hold on a
their
second. But isn't there a wall in the academic field as well? Because I have the pleasure of having friends that are professors at both Central, Duke, and State, and I can tell you that what maybe you were getting paid versus what some of the adjunct professors and the other lower end professors are getting paid is not. There's a wide gap there.
No,
I'll just put it that way and
there's a
everything.
wide gap
But because
between.
the adjunct professors are getting paid nickels, they are oftentimes paid year to
I know
year
there's a
basis, and
wide
there's a number of
gap
issues with that.
between adjuncts. Okay, I can tell you this. Northeastern pays top dollar. They're great. They have a great union. They get top dollar and all this other stuff. In private, I'll tell you what it is per hour, but it beats everybody here. I mean, by far, it beats top attorneys. It's just pretty good. But at the same time, how many students are taking loans out for this, going into debt to the extent where it's going to take them years to pay it back? It just doesn't make any economic sense. And why isn't the universities not telling them that this is not the way to go? Why don't the high schools do this even? Well, the high schools don't do it because they want to feel good about themselves. Look, we had students go to Cornell and Yale, but did they go for free? Oh no, they paid student loans, and that's bad. And so what we have is this huge huge amount of seduction going out on there, out in the education world with a big conflict of interest and a student debt that cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. And this is where the Republicans need to eat it. I'm sorry, Dan. They caused this. The Republicans caused this mess because in 2005, George Bush signed into law the Bankruptcy Abuse and Consumer Protection Act, which prohibits student debt from being discharged in bankruptcy. So you cannot blame it all on one party. A lot of our mess is of bipartisan support.
And I want to interject here too, just to make a little correction. Not all the students goof off.
General goes to the Democrats, student debt goes to the Republican Party.
No, what were you
Right,
saying?
and I agree with you, Nick. And not all the students goof off. I got friends who work their butts off to become doctors to take care of your dirty little butts. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. This is the future who's going to take care of you as you get older and die in palliative care and stuff like that. And you don't want to take care of them. But let me explain something to you. When you go get a loan, you qualify for that loan. You're older. You're running a business. You've got a job. You qualify for that loan and you can charge it off. When you're irresponsible, you get that loan, you go buy big houses, you buy cars, you buy boats, video games. Okay, guys, you buy all of this junk and then you want to charge it off. You know, Trump charged it off 7 times. Let's talk about a Republican being, you know, responsible. Your president that you love and worship and follow and beg to run again. He filed 7 times, yet you don't want to give it to a child, a minor who you fed all of this crap that you can get a better job with a degree. No, they were children when you gave them the PPP loans. Come on, people. You forgave it. It was not supposed to be forgiven, especially if you did not use it to pay your employees. Now, how many of those Republicans who wiped the debt off of the PPP actually paid their employees with the millions of dollars that they wrote themselves? Well, each of you only got $1,700. Well, some of you got more, but some of you got the PPP loan and didn't have to pay it back. And you know what? You're responsible grown adults and you knew what you signed. So don't sit here and feed to me that these kids deserve to be carrying a debt. Don't. They were young when they got minors.
Another thing you brought up, and I'm going
to buy a piece of jewelry.
Kim, I'm going to take one more dig at the Republican Party.
And grow some cojones and realize these are the people who are going to take care of you when you're dying. And you know what? When you're dying, they're going to look at you and they're going to go, oh, excuse me, I got to go. I got another job to do that pays better because being a doctor don't pay me well enough. Right now, we're losing doctors hand over fist.
I want to add one more thing to the Republican Party, oh, they're innocent routine for Dan Worthington, because I didn't believe it when I heard it. 25% of all national debt, get this one, Lee, all national debt was acquired under the Trump administration. Okay. I was going, that can't be true because we know Donald
Yes.
Trump's Republican and very conservative. Yeah, right. And go fact check it. And I had to fact check it. And it was true. I was going,
Nick, how much was our the last year under COVID?
that under the Trump administration? So the Republicans, as well as the Democrats, are equally responsible almost for that 31 trillion. In other words, they both contributed to this huge amount of debt. One, by lying to us, saying that we're going to cut taxes and GDP is going to explode to 6%, and it didn't. And the other one that can't figure out enough ways to spend money on things that don't make any sense. So between that, now in the situation you're at, and the media is complicit with both parties. They both give each other a pass. Republicans
definitely give a pass to the media. Hey,
Democrats.
Nick, speaking of passes and all along those lines, how important to you and everybody on the panel it is? Because, like I said, I am glad that I have my journalism degree and definitely enjoy the education that I have. Feel that it was a good liberal arts education that I got from Marquette. But how important do you think it is to even have a college degree this day? Because we know that there are a number of people in the tech world and in other worlds that don't even have a high school degree and seem to be doing well because these are new frontiers that exist out there that you may not know.
You gotta get it. You gotta get it somewhere.
Should you even have a college degree? Just a minute, I'm going to call Bill Gates. Hey, Bill, how that college? Oh, you don't have a college degree. Bill, didn't you go to Harvard? Oh, you dropped out. Okay, so
But Nick, in fairness, though, who did he hire?
Mark
His
Zuckerberg.
hires are a college degree for the most part.
Mark, where'd you go to school at? Oh, Mark Zuckerberg, you went to Harvard. That's good. Did you get a college degree? Nope, didn't. Okay, next. How many phone calls do you want me to make?
These people were very, very intelligent people with business skills and capable of without new ideas. See, it's not the college degree, it's the knowledge you have and experience you have and the ideas you have. And so you're right, you don't have to go if you've got that, if you've got a business edge. But how many people, I think those people represent an exception to the rule.
I agree.
They are. I mean, just got damn lucky more than anything. And it takes a lot. Plus, they screwed their partners. We know that, both male and female. But
they came from wealthy families. But let's not.
Wealthy families.
Hey, hold on a
they had the
second.
resources.
Dan, hold on a second, because one of the things I'm going to loop it back to what we were talking about earlier. One of the reasons that some people went into the military is to get a education or a training, but not all those trainings are translatable when they go into the civilian job. Like just because you're an MP doesn't make that you're going to be a good actual police officer. But
you also get the GI Bill, so you can go.
Hey, Mark, are you familiar with Tyler Perry?
Yes, I'm very familiar with the name.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's his educational background?
I don't think Tyler went to school.
He got a GED from high school.
Right.
That's it. Okay. So do you want me to give Tyler a call? Do you need a
smart enough to get a GED? You know
what?
He was smart enough to get a GED.
Yeah, he's smart enough to go get his GED. But the thing is,
But hold on a second. I've got to bring up another thing that Steve brought. I got to bring up something else that Steve brought up earlier and everything, because we got some very super smart people and some very wealthy people. But Lee, you'll be glad to know it because I do know that you are a social media genius. But some of these folks that are into the social media lanes are also not the brightest people in the world, because how are you going to roll out a campaign on a major platform, that being Twitter, and not know you're going to have some glitches? Because apparently that's what happened with this rollout of the presidential announcement, and apparently it was a total kerfuffle, to use that word, and everything, as the way it happened and everything. But I was wondering your thoughts about this, because like I said, he was planning to roll out this massive announcement of his candidacy to go up against Mr. Trump and all in that space, and then apparently it was a total disaster on Twitter, and it was an agreement between Mr. DeSantis and Mr. Elon Musk. But now this is the talk of the internet, because apparently it was not a well-planned announcement, and it has all kinds of glitches. And we know even here on this network, we've had glitches with Roku and Facebook and a number of other sources. We know glitches can happen, but I don't know that this is a good optic for the DeSantis campaign.
No, when it's public like this, people should be doing the homework. We had Obamacare when it went out. The system was broken. We had this that didn't work out so well either. Aren't these people doing homework? Especially if you're running for president, you want to, check all your boxes off. I just don't get it. They didn't test run this thing?
That's what I was thinking. Was there no
They
test
might
run?
have been able to. You know, if they literally got that many people. But remember, who's this guy? Elon Musk. He's not a media genius. Okay, I mean that's not his thing. He would have known when he bought Twitter. A lot of those views are bots. We already know that at Pod TV Network. And so the next thing, it should have been predictive analysis. If you went to Chat GDP, would predict a certain percentage chance that he's going to have this big breakdown because for him it's a new technology. And then remember, he fired half the staff, Lee. So there's
Yeah, but what were they doing? Probably nothing anyways.
that can fix the problem. So basically it was bought and paid for. So then you ask, why did he do this to begin with when he knew or should have known this thing could screw up? The publicity he got from it was tremendous. I'm wondering, Kim, if we had that on Pod TV, would we fold?
Well, you know, you and I have learned to work with just what we know how to do and make things happen. And we no longer hire people because nowadays people don't even know how to build things. Like when I asked somebody to build something not too long ago and they laughed at me and said, "Oh, you're a complete idiot. You could never do it." And what did I do, Nick? I built it. So,
Speaking of
once
building
an
it, hey,
engineer, always an engineer. Don't ever say I'm not. But here's the thing. People take for granted a lot of things, but so do we.
Yeah.
And we need to stop taking for granted of what we have and start fixing the problems we have. And the biggest problem we have is our future of this country. And the biggest problem is we have indentured slaved every one of our children, and they know it. And they are supposed to be the people who take care of us as we get older. And if you don't want that, they don't care. But don't sit here and say, "Oh, they took the money and goofed off and then they want to charge off their debt." When any one of you can charge off your debt anytime you want it, and take a look at what you bought with it. And don't sit there and throw the first stone and say you didn't goof off with any of it or any of the money you make. Because they can't even make money and buy anything with it because everything goes to a student debt that keeps accruing higher because nobody taught them financial literacy. They taught them how to take care of you and cut you open and fix your heart or your brain.
Boo-hoo.
Well, Dan, I hope you get one of those doctors and he goes boo-hoo when he says, "I got to quit." So, and I don't wish.
Not all of them are doctors. A lot of them have useless majors.
They
Grow
won't be
up.
there. They
You-
won't be
okay.
there
When you
to
get a
say
loan,
boo.
Lee,
get a loan, do
wait a
you
minute. You said
qualify?
doctors have useless majors in what?
No. I said, Kim's giving the impression that in terms of doctors having loans, and I agree with her on that point. But not everybody who goes to college has a marketable major. There's no requirement
I agree.
there.
Not everyone should go to business school. I agree. Not everyone should go to marketing school. And not everyone should go to software development. Some of that we can teach ourselves. Some of that we can't. Hackers have proven that. I
And what do we
agree.
consider? And what do we
I
consider
agree.
non-marketable
Well, I
majors?
wanna
Because, like I
know
said,
why
just
Dance
because
majors.
somebody-
I don't know.
I mean, but somebody
Sorry.
might have a love of anthropology. I'm not
Why
going to
are
knock
there
anthropology.
You can do that on your own dime.
If you
Do
have a
some
love
of
of
these on your
anthropology
own
and you want
time.
to make money as an anthropologist, you want to go travel the world.
That's
and
a
you can afford
hobby.
to do that and
You know, there's
everything.
a difference
That is
between
not
a
a hobby.
hobby
That
and
is a job for some folks, and that is a legitimate job. And I
Okay.
don't think that we have
So
a
if
right
you
to
know
knock
you're
that
going
job.
into a profession that doesn't pay a hell of a lot, you should understand the economics of that and the consequences of that choice. I
So
know.
who
Most people
teaches
do.
that?
Most
Who
people that I know
teaches
that went
that,
into
Dan?
journalism did not expect to
Who
make any
teaches
money. They
that
went
to
into
any of the
it because
students
they had
when
a
they're
passion for
cooking
journalism.
them?
Because most journalists know that they're not going to make money unless you are working for ABC, NBC,
Well,
or one of those
stupid
major
is-
companies.
Doesn't provide
Stupid
your-
is what
Nobody.
stupid does. It's sort of
But
like
that's not saying that
the
somebody is
Forrest Gump
stupid
rule.
because they're going into a
Stupid
field
is
that
stupid.
is not making money. People don't always go to work just for money. That is a stupid remark, Dan, in the first place. Because some
No,
people
it's
go
not
into it because they have a
stupid.
passion for
People
something
have
as
to
well.
be-
So if you have a passion
People
for
have
something
to be
and you know that
realistic
you're going to
about
make,
their.
sometimes
I mean,
you make,
I
you
would
know
have
what you're going
loved
to
to
make and
go
you
into
earn
music,
and you
but I
live
couldn't-
according to what
I
you're going
couldn't
to make.
support my
Put them in the
family
ring together.
as
Say what?
music. So I
Put,
became
put
a
Dan and
lawyer.
Mark in the
I-
ring together.
That's what
I
we're going to do.
sold out. I sold out. I went.
We're going to put them in the
law
ring together. Here we go.
school. Yeah,
You did what?
I sold out. I went to law school. It's
Ding,
like
ding, ding, ding.
you know my
Yeah, you went to law
professor.
school, and that was your
my-
option to go to law school.
my
There were
professor-
other people that were in
my
your
professor
circle that might have decided that
had-
they wanted to be
you know, you
musicians
sold
and
out.
everything.
You
Did that mean
you
that
could
they
have
sold
been-
out because they wanted to be musicians and
You could
were
have been a
going to make
college
a certain amount of
professor
money as
teaching
musicians?
all this
I don't
other
think so.
stuff.
I think that people.
So So I sold
have
out.
a passion for law. There's nothing wrong with having that passion.
I don't have
for
a
law.
passion for law.
So if you don't have a passion
like
for law, why the
lawyers.
fuck are you doing it? Excuse my language.
The money. That's why I did it.
So you went into it for the money. Then that's cool. If that is your purpose for life is money and everything, then that is perfect.
Well, it wasn't
there are
my
certain people
purpose.
that are
So
not
I went into
materialistic. There
charitable.
are some people that do things
I went
out
into
of
charitable
a
planning
certain
so
kind
that I
of
could
other
help raise money
thoughts
for
and everything.
nonprofit organizations, and so that's what I've done. I've dedicated my life to raising money for nonprofit organizations and helping people who have the wealth to preserve it through charitable giving and planning, and so that's what I do.
And now those nonprofits, some of them are paid a significant amount of money, because I know some nonprofits even here in North Carolina. So I know some of the administrators can make in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and even more than that. And there are some of the staff members that don't necessarily make that, but they sometimes do the work because they have
I've never
interest in whatever the
worked
nonprofit is about.
I've never worked for a nonprofit that hasn't had a cost to raise a dollar that's been in the top percentile in the nation, because I believe they have to be responsible. So, and then with family foundations and others, it's helping them organize it and structure it in a way that can be responsible and create a connection between wealth and responsibility for future generations, so their kids aren't spoiled by the wealth that they participate.
No, like I said,
and doing well on doing good.
I've been part of some art endowment organizations and everything like that. And my mom ran one of the leading nonprofits until she retired about 15 years ago that was in the country, which is the tobacco settlement money. But yeah, mom ran the Golden Leaf Foundation for a number of years. So I'm very aware of how the nonprofit game works in all of that space.
Well, good for you.
So while we're talking about nonprofits and Memorial Day being here, I would like to introduce to everyone Tunnel to Towers for Veterans. Mm-hmm. They are one of very few non-for-profit organizations that actually utilize almost 93% of what they bring in towards helping disabled veterans or veterans who have lost their, that have died, and the family is struggling and cannot pay their bills because they got student debt out the butt and, can't get a job because they're raising kids, widows that don't have enough money or income. They help pay for the houses. They help give back to the veterans who have sacrificed themselves for us. So don't forget to, if you are supporting non-for-profits, they are one of few who don't retain the money for the admin and the group. They have to pay some money out, but 93% is a lot. Most non-for-profits don't even do 80%. So I would just say, if given Memorial Day, if you got a big heart and you really, really do care about those veterans who sacrificed their lives for you, and this doesn't just stop with the military, this is for first responders too. They have given to police officers as well as other people who have died in the active service. Tunnel to Towers for our veterans. Go check them out. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
And that's not an ad that's paid for. That's just out of my heart, because they're.
Oh yeah. No, and you're right, because the standard best practices is 11% or less spent for cost of administration. So if they're at 8%, they're doing great. They're
the kindness of your heart and everything, and that's very well said and very well needed, and all of that. We definitely got to support those veterans all in a space. The only things that I would add, and I did mention
we also have to
is
wrap up.
Next Level Vets, which is that group that does the